Sandra Payne here with the End the Silence podcast, and I am here with Sarah. I should have asked you how to say your last name. Bohachyk?
Did I say Bohachyk.
Bohachyk. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm here with Sarah, and she has graced us with her presence today. Sarah's a registered nurse that has worked in the emergency department for over 10 years. She's also completing her Master's of Nursing from Alberta University. I actually took one course before I had my first child, and then I was like, no.
Fair enough.
Sarah has started experiencing symptoms of trauma actually in 2016, but in December of 2019, she experienced another traumatic event at work that triggered PTSD. She's been off work for most of 2020 due to this PTSD injury and is now looking to improve the lives of other nurses who are also struggling. Sarah has teamed up with other nurses to start the Nurse to Nurse Peer Support Organization, which we will definitely talk about later. And with the support of her husband and her two little fur children, Sarah hopes to start the conversation about the true impact of nursing. Welcome, Sarah. I'm so happy to have you here. Happy to have you here. And so I met Sarah sort of online. We were both speaking at a union meeting in the Alberta union meeting, and she shared part of her story. And I just, I knew I had to have you on.
Thank you.
Your story it's profound. It's real. It hits all the heartstrings. And I posted it in our Facebook group, Surviving Nursing, so I know a lot of people have read it and they can find it online. But Sarah, let's just start out, and you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and like what kind of got you to where you are today, what led you into nursing. Yeah, it's a big ask, I know. Like, how do you condense your story?
That's that's a big one. Like most people, I find that have joined the nursing profession, it's something you kind of always felt drawn to. And I know some people call it like a vocation or a calling. Sure, kind of is, but it's definitely something I felt drawn to at a young age. I think I was 12 and I'm like, I'm going to be a nurse. And that was it. Like, that was the decision I made. And I've lived in Alberta most of my life. I lived a little bit in BC for a while, but came back for university, and I've been working here. I was the first graduating class from MacEwan University for the RN program, which was very exciting. Got to be kind of the guinea pigs there, but it turned out great, so that's good. And I found my passion in emergency nursing. I really embraced it. It's the best and worst of everything. It's humanity at its finest, right? We see the beautiful moments that make you just like, oh, this is why I'm a nurse, to the moments of like, ugh, this is my job. Like, it spans the whole spectrum. And I've tried to be really active in the nursing profession. We had a peer mentorship group started, pilot project for 2 years that I was participating on. We've got quality councils in our merge. And we were the first actually in Alberta to establish the COACT, Collaborative Patient Care Initiatives. We were the first emerge department to do that in Alberta. I was the lead of that. So I created the framework for it to go into the emerges all across Alberta for that, with assistance of COACT and everything. Yeah, I've been busy. And I started my Masters because I'm like, I want to do more. I want to do more. And then, as you mentioned, 2016, I took care of a patient, and she was a victim of a home invasion and a stabbing. And I took care of her. And I went home and I locked my bedroom door for the very first time ever. I don't even remember doing it. Like, I just kind of locked the bedroom door and I went to bed, and I'm like, oh, my days went on. And like, I kept doing that for weeks. And then I finally clued in, like, oh, this is different. But I just, you don't really think it's that big of a deal. It's like, I locked my bedroom door, whatever. And it kept progressing. I started having nightmares, but who doesn't have a bad dream about work, right? Like, who doesn't dream and wake up, oh my God, I forgot the water, right? You wake up in the middle of the night.
Forgot to sign for that med, crap.
Right? You have that panic and you're like, crap. So who doesn't have bad dreams about work, especially in nursing, where you take things kind of personally, right? Like, we are a human profession. We are an art and a science, and we have that bond and that human emotion. And it takes a lot, and it really does. But yeah, so I kept going. I was high functioning with my injury. I had no idea I was even injured as it kept progressing, right? Start getting anxious driving into the parking lot. I'm like, oh, I'll sit out here for another minute and I'll take a few deep breaths and try to be mindful before I go in. And it just kept building, like years it kept building. And I just kind of ignored it, rationalized it, as we do, right? We're nurses. We put our heads down and we keep going. That's the job. And so I kept doing that until yeah, December of 2019, I had another patient that was uncannily like my mother, like her twin, actually. And she ended up dying quite traumatically in front of me hours later. And that was it. Like I couldn't function after that. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So since then, I've been struggling quite a bit with PTSD. I'm high functioning PTSD. You know, I can still eat. I can still do that right now. But at the time of my injury, it was not pleasant. It was not enjoyable. I was anxious. I was depressed. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even close my eyes washing my hair in the shower because I just envisioned someone being in the bathroom about to attack me. Like there's so many profound things that just like to my core, right? It just hit me to my soul. And I got lost. Like I didn't even know who I was anymore. Like I just kind of felt like this blob of terror in my own house. And it's not great. Yeah.
I think, you know, I've never worked in Emerge. I've been in Emerge, but I've never worked there. But I've always looked at that department as like, you know, I've worked in ICU, like baby ICU, and I've worked a lot in the community, but Emerge is like a special breed of nurses because you see, you know, like we used to in the community when we called it like womb to tomb, like you see the whole range of patients and like some of the worst of the worst. And I can't imagine that there's not a nurse out there, particularly ones that have worked in Emerge, that have not experienced some kind of, whether it's PTSD or it's secondary PTSD. Like I think one of the pieces I've learned is that, you know, that PTSD or any kind of trauma, honestly, it's not about the situation. It's about how we internalize and how we process that inside. And I know, like, even working in the NICU, what prompted me to leave was a traumatic death of a baby that I looked after, that I was a part of sending that baby home. I was a part of the discharge, and then the baby died at home. And so that was like, it just cascaded after that. And so I think, you know, even when I talk about burnout or I talk about depression, like we say it's like this insidious, like kind of creeping up on us, but is it really? Like, you know, if we really think back, do we have this sort of like pile up of things, like multiple situations that just keep coming at us, and then it feels like it hits all at once, but really, I mean, this has been going on for a long time, just building, right? Because it's anyway. So I really honor you sharing that story. I know there's so much more to it as well, and I think we'll definitely have the written story for people to read so that they can get the full effect of that for sure. Tell me, like, as a nurse, what's been the biggest struggle that you've had to face?
The biggest struggle. The biggest struggle has definitely been recognizing my own injury. That was the hardest part. I'm trained to look after people. I'm trained to see things in other people. And even in my own coworkers, sometimes I'm like, you know, they look a little, you know, they're shaking a lot, like maybe they need some help, but I wouldn't even see it in myself. And I think that's the biggest part of one of the things that we need to change too, is this whole awareness of the fact that we are human beings. Like, yes, we're nurses. Yes, we're trained professionals, but at the end of the day, we're still a human being. And now I feel like I forgot where that thought was going.
It's okay. We are human beings. And I think we do lose sight of that. It becomes almost robotic. And, you know, this is a part of, something that I share too, is like why we don't reach out for help. And like you were saying, like it was the hardest thing was like to recognize it in ourselves. And it's also the taking steps to do something about it, because there is this overwhelming, is it fear, or is it like we want to fit the mold, we want to be good enough in this profession, and this profession requires a lot of resilience. And I do believe nurses have like some natural resilience. Otherwise we would just crumble in our first, few shifts, because you have to be able to move through it. But there's such a high bar as far as like not internalizing things and not letting it bother you, and just being able to pick up and move on after something happens. And that's not human. That's not how humans operate, right? So I think that's maybe kind of where you were going with that.
That was exactly where I was going. So thank you for bringing that. Because and there's a whole education point about other people, right? There's no education given to us about how to look after ourselves, or what to be aware of for us if we are getting burnt out or fatigued or depressed or whatever. Because I know throughout my 10 years, I've had burnout. I know I have. I've had that like, chronic fatigue. I've had depression, but I just work through it. It's like, okay, well, it's just a bad week, whatever. You don't really realize the true implications of what it's doing to yourself. And asking for help, it took me a month to make that appointment to go see my doctor after I've like cowering at home, barely sleeping for days. It took me a month to get the courage to make that phone call. And then even like my husband had to drive me to the appointment because I wasn't sure if I couldn't go, like, oh, I wasn't sure I'd make it, right? Like I wasn't sure I would physically be able to walk in there and say, I need help, because as healthcare professionals, we're the ones that people are supposed to go to. And it's really hard to go up to somebody and be like, you know what? I need help, especially to another healthcare professional, because you're like, oh, am I just going to sound ridiculous? Is he just going to give me pills and not help me? Is it, do I really need help? Am I okay? Or do I just need some time off, right? Like you just constantly spiral and you doubt yourself and you doubt that you actually need help and that you're important enough to get it.
Yeah.
That was me. Like I didn't feel important enough to get help. I felt, oh, it's fine. Right. And it wasn't. It really wasn't.
Yeah. And we should be able to handle this. Right. And I think that whole doubt piece is so big. Like, you know, we feel like we should be able to do this. Like we shouldn't be feeling like this because we are feeling like this. So because it's very much, we feel it like something's wrong with us. Like what, so, but then we just don't say anything about it because heaven forbid, you know, we might not be good enough, or we're going to be that nurse, that weak nurse that no one wants in their room. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sink or swim. Good God. How many times have I heard that? Right. Yeah.
I know. It's like, you can either make it or you can't. It's like, well, how about supporting me so I can make it and make it healthy and last in this profession longer than a year, 5 years, 10 years? Like, why does it have to be one extreme or the other?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
right?
I so appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's shift. Because nursing's not all bad. I mean, and like you said, most people get into it because they have this, you know, this deep desire to help people, to care for other people, and they want to be a part of the change that they desire to see in the world. And and for a good chunk of it, we do, like, we are a part of the change. You know, I think the negative can definitely overshadow the positive. I often say, like, this is a profession that takes a lot from us and doesn't give a lot back. So the balance is very teetered. But tell me, what's been like some of your biggest successes or accomplishments or triumphs as a nurse?
Oh, I hope I haven't fully reached my biggest one yet. I hope I'm getting there still. But sometimes it was just the smallest things. Like really the things that made me so happy to be there was literally just sitting there holding somebody's hand when they're crying, right? When they get a bad diagnosis, or being that human being that somebody needs in their worst moment. You know, someone's family member dies and holding them up so they can sit in the chair and then getting them water and just being there. Sometimes that is just the most fulfilling part, because not a lot of people can be there during the worst moments of someone's life. And that's what we're there for, right? So no matter what you need to work on, no matter your community in hospital, it doesn't matter. You're usually there when people are struggling and you're there. And that's what I found really just encouraging, empowering, and satisfying, is knowing that I was making a difference in one person's life for 1 minute. I could do that. And then it just kept going. But some of my biggest things that I'm like, yeah, I did that, was the COACT program for the emergency department. Patient collaborative care, involving them more into their care and wanting them to ask questions, wanting them to know and be a part of their care plan, instead of the dictatorship of physician walking in, we're doing this, and then walking out. I wanted it to be a genuine communication, genuine conversation. And so I really kind of took that on as my little soapbox for a while and wanted to bring that. So that was a great initiative that we started building more communication. And we are the first department in all of Alberta to do this and embrace it. So I'm really proud of that. But I feel like my best success hopefully is on its way with the Nurse to Nurse Peer Support Organization, which we'll get to. That's the goal. I hope that could really help my fellow coworkers, because I've helped patients for 10 years and looking back, it's like, you know what? No one's looking after us. I want to support my nurses. Like that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. So stand with you in that. And so tell us a little bit about this project, this program that you're spearheading. I know you're working with a couple other nurses. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, there's four of us that are the founders right now. It was started by another nurse, Katrina. She's also off work with PTSD injuries. She's had a couple of injuries from her work, and she wrote an article in our Union magazine sharing her experience. She wants to end the stigma. She wants to start the conversation. And I was only a couple months into my injury when I first read her article, and I cried. Like she wrote things, and I'm like, finally, somebody else that knows what it feels like. And because I felt like for so long, I spent so many months talking to people that couldn't understand, and with good reason. It's something very personal, and it's something very deep, and it's difficult to express. And finally, somebody is like, "Oh, she gets it. She gets it." And so, connected with her and a few other nurses. We've got a RPN, like a registered psych nurse, and two other nurses and myself that are the four main founders of this organization. And we really want it to be a nonprofit charitable organization that's just there to support nurses. Eventually, hopefully, other healthcare professionals and RTs and all that kind of stuff. But for now, we want to focus on nurses and be that support. So we want to provide peer support circles right now with COVID and everything. It's all on Zoom. But we want to provide that safe space where you can share and genuinely know that it's confidential. You can share your experiences, not risk being judged or feel like that nurse that can't cut it, right? Like you talk and you're like, yo, I cried for 6 hours the other day because I dropped a pen. And people are like, I get it. I get it. And it's so validating to feel like I am not alone in this. So and we want to branch out to education, provide education for mental health and well-being for healthcare professionals and their family members to help. We want to do advocacy, so public awareness. We want to do a lot of really good things. So we're starting. It's not official yet, but hopefully early next year, hopefully January, we'll be a real organization and we can start making a real difference.
Yeah, this is so good. So this is so needed, needed. And I just, I want to say from the coaching that I've done and the workshops I've done that have had a good number of people attend, one of the biggest feedbacks that I get is that it feels so good to be with other nurses who get it. Who I don't have to sit there and explain to them what it's like to be a nurse, just so that they can maybe understand a little bit about what I'm feeling.
Exactly.
When you sit with other nurses who already get it because they're in there, they've done it, they've been there, it just takes this whole weight off. And then there is profound support to be found in a group. That is something across, hands down, one of the most important things is for us to create this peer support network. So just huge congratulations to you and your partners for doing this. I think, is it going to be just Canadian, or where have you guys kind of thought about that?
Well, we know the need is everywhere. The World Health Organization has talked about burnout for nurses and the crisis going on. We know it's a global issue. So we really do need to start small. Our dream is to make it go at least across Canada. We want to get it federally legislated, or however you properly say it, but we want to get it federally covered. And we already have nurses across Canada that are participating in this. So we could have branches in every province, and we really want to make this a real thing to provide that healing and that support. So eventually, hopefully, we want to be any healthcare member, doesn't matter your designation, because really, if you're there during a traumatic experience, the name tag designation you have on isn't going to change the fact that it can be traumatizing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're the RT, the doctor, the healthcare, the custodial worker coming in and cleaning. It doesn't matter. It's still a traumatizing event. If it traumatizes you, that's what it is. So we really want to acknowledge that for everybody, but we've got a ways to go. So we're just starting. We're really excited about it. But we want to see it go everywhere for everyone. That's the goal, right?
So good. It's going to be so good. You got to start somewhere, right? And then it'll evolve and grow of its own kind of fruition, wherever it kind of takes and snowballs. And there'll probably be these spindly pieces that go off in different directions. It's exciting, actually. Yeah, really exciting.
Very,
So I want to this is a question. If you could go back to yourself on your first day of nursing school, what would be, I know. So the first time someone asked me this, I was like, run. So go back to your first day of nursing school. What would you say to yourself? What kind of advice would you give to yourself, knowing what you know now?
That I matter. that I need to take care of myself. Like doing things and getting the list of orders done, yeah, it's great, but I need to make sure I drink water, and I need to make sure I get my break, and I need to make sure I go pee more than once a shift. I need to make sure I actually take care of myself like I matter, because I didn't. And it was never encouraged. It was never understood. I always, saw myself as a very servant style kind of leader. Like I'm there to serve the patients and advocate for them. And like the doctors, I don't work for them, I work with them. It's a collaboration between all of us. And so I really feel like if I had been told that I matter and I need to take care of myself at the beginning, maybe I wouldn't be here today. I don't know, right? Like maybe if I took better care of myself, but then, I'm not trying to make myself feel bad about it. I can't blame myself for not knowing, which is part of wanting to share and tell people that, hey, maybe if they hear my story and they're like, oh, I feel anxious driving to work all the time, maybe that is a problem, right? Maybe that can make a difference. But yeah, definitely I wish I could have told myself, like, you know what, you matter more. You need to take care of yourself. I wish I'd known that.
Yeah. There's like just this quote I've seen. It's like no amount of money and no job is worth sacrificing yourself for. And it's like I teach nursing students and medical students. I teach them CPR, and every time I'm like, this has nothing to do with CPR, but I want to give you my biggest piece of advice I could ever give a student, and that is to look after yourself. Like you need to, because like I've said, like this takes a lot from you, these professions and healthcare in our system today. It's just it's very broken. I hesitate with that word, but it really is. It's broken in so many ways, and we don't, we're not taught to look after ourselves. It's funny, I have a list of things that I wish I would have been taught in nursing school.
Yeah.
So you should start a list too, because maybe there's like, something to be said for like starting it early, right, with the students. So if you could have one thing change, I know this is like, all of them are huge questions, like how can we nail down one thing, but one thing to change in the nursing profession, what would it be?
One thing that we could change, I think, is definitely our own perception and our own culture. Like we, as a nursing profession, we do have our own culture where we do put ourselves last. We do tolerate bullying or abuse much more than we should. We do get abused as a profession, verbally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It doesn't matter. Our profession does take a lot, and we do get beaten down in one way or another. So I think our own culture of accepting that, whether it be horizontal or vertical violence, that needs to change. Like that's not okay anymore. We should not expect to be abused at our work. We should not think it's okay. We should no longer accept being afraid going to work because we don't know what the conditions are going to be like. We need to change that culture because we're the ones in it and we're perpetuating it. It's been going on long enough. Nursing, eating their young was a saying, started, I think, in the 80s. Let's move on. Let's try to change that. We're beyond that now. So let's embrace something else. Let's be more empowering. I'm tired of playing the subservient role of like, okay, well, because you said so, let's do this because this is our role. That's not our role anymore. Our role is to advocate, and we're not doing that for ourselves. Like we're advocating for our patients, we're advocating for everyone else. We need to stand up for ourselves because this is frankly unsustainable and it's terrible. Like this is not how we should be living our lives in our profession. So we need to take that change, and we need to change our own culture. So it's like complacency is like the curse in nursing. And it is, the culture of nursing is like, it has become it's just acceptable that like that you're going to get burnt out. Yeah, you're probably going to be depressed. Yeah, you're probably going to have to take a stress leave at some point. Like it's just like the norm. And how's that okay? Like how's that okay? It's not.
Yeah, it's a bit mind blowing to think. But I also, this is what I say to everybody. It's like the change starts with you. We can't necessarily take on these big mountains all in one fell swoop, right? Like it's going to take each and every one of us making a choice and a decision that we are important, that we matter, that we have value, and that we're not going to stand for this anymore. Whatever that looks like is going to be individual, but it comes down to each of us changing. And then the more of us that do, the culture will change, right? It'll change with us.
Exactly.
What's been like some of the most helpful tools that you've learned to help you deal with the stress or with, you know, witnessing trauma? I mean, that's stress in and of itself, but there's so many. I think stress is probably the overriding word that we can use to describe it. So what would be like some of the, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of the most helpful tools you've learned?
Mindfulness has been a really big one. And even before my injury got bad enough that I had to go off, I didn't realize that I was coping with mindfulness techniques. So like sitting in the car when I arrived in the parking lot and listening to a full song and just closing my eyes and feeling it and being in the moment. Or like there's trees in the parking lot towards work. I would like touch the tree and be like, okay, nature, the living thing outside the hospital, it's okay, I will come back. And I'll like, so that would be my personal separation of like, hey, home Sarah's now here, work Sarah's entering the building, and then when I leave, I'd touch the tree again and be like, okay, work Sarah gets left here, home Sarah goes home. And yoga was a really good thing. Of course, with COVID, it's a little different too. I can't really keep going because I keep closing, but that really helped me just be more present and aware of my own body, because we get so busy at work, distracted with things to do. It would take me an hour and a half to realize, oh, I'm thirsty. Like, you know, because we get so busy. We need to just really reconnect. So sometimes at work, I would even just like take an extra minute in the bathroom and just breathe. Be like, okay, this is my timeout. This is okay. Like, I really needing to take that deep breath is one of the things too. Like just, yeah, like that's helped me a lot of times at triage, actually. So deep breathing, that's a big thing too.
And, you know, like the whole thing you just said, like reconnecting with our bodies and like just relearning like what our sensations are and our signals. And you know, that's why we dance. Like that's why we danced before this, because it's like it gets you out of here, it puts you back in here, which is like where all the amazingness is, right? Like our head just kind of has this tendency, not that there's not amazing things in there, but it has a tendency of kind of messing with us, right? Taking control, and it's not necessarily doing the best things for us all the time. So yeah. Is there anything else, Sarah, that you feel like you'd like to share with us, or that maybe we didn't I mean, I know there's lots, but yeah,
I could keep going. But definitely I want people to know that it's okay to acknowledge that, you know, you're struggling. And it took me a long time to understand that hey, I'm having trouble sleeping. That's not okay. That's a sign of something. Or you get hyper vigilant when you're at work and you're all stimulated and you go up here and you crash for your 3 days off, or you barely get off the couch, right? Like that tells you your body is trying to tell you, you need to slow down. Something's wrong, right? Like if I had been told the warning signs before, maybe I could have prevented my injury from being as hard as it was. So I really want to open that up and start the conversation. Like, yes, I'm a nurse. I have PTSD. But I'm doing okay. I'm getting better. I'm healing. And I still want to make a difference. I'm still a nurse at the end of the day. Like that's part of who I am. It's my DNA. So I really want people to understand that they're not alone and that this is a difficult process and there is help and it's okay. Like you are a human being and you're allowed to have emotions, even though we're trained we can't. Yeah. We can, right? Like that's what I really want to emphasize, that it's okay to admit you need help. Like there's nothing wrong with that. I'm doing it. I did it. I'm still getting help. I'm still okay. My head didn't explode, right? Like the world didn't end, even though 2020 was a terrible year. We are here and we can get better, right? Like that's what I really want to encourage people to reach out. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So, yeah. There's hope.
Yes.
Like, I think that's a really powerful piece that people are looking for, you know, that we're not stuck, where we don't have to, we don't have to be okay and just like, okay with this, like just okay with being miserable and okay with being tired and okay with being exhausted and emotionally overwhelmed. Like we don't have to be okay with that there's hope for a change, for a new way, for another way. So I just really, 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 really from the bottom of my heart want to thank you for being here, for sharing with us, for showing up, for doing this work too. Like I do believe like there's so many good things to come with everything that you're doing. And I'm so, I'm honestly, I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to have you here. So yeah.
It's wonderful. Thank you for having me. Like this is another opportunity where we get to share, like you said, end the silence, because we're all struggling in one way or another, and it's time to come together. Like, why are we so afraid? We're the people that people come to for help. So why are we so afraid to ask for help ourselves? Like we shouldn't do that anymore, right? And I thank you for starting for the conversation and opening up to me and letting me share my story. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.